Welcome back, everybody, to These Aren't the Nerds You're Looking For. Lorenzo Fon sitting here with...
Kevin Howard.
How you doing, my man?
Doing well. No complaints.
Yeah, sounds good. Weekend treating you well over there?
Yeah, things are nice. It was real hot last week. Temperature dropped a little bit over the weekend, so it was nice and beautiful. And then it's supposed to start getting hot as hell again tomorrow. So we're getting that.
Like a good Midwest autumn to throw a heat wave at you.
Yeah, we had a relatively mild summer, and now we've got some August temperatures in September, so who knows what the fuck is going to happen moving forward, but I'm ready for the shit to break. Even though we weren't in like the hundreds, maybe not even at all, maybe a couple of days, I'm done with the 90s. I'm
sure.
ready to get back down into the 80s. You know, so
yep.
What can you do?
We're getting some similar weather over here, so it's all right. Let's talk about Star Wars Clone Wars Kidnapped today, shall we?
We shall, man.
This is Season 4, Episode 11, air date of November 25th, 2011.
Yep.
What else? We got production number 4.03, written by Henry Gilroy and Stephen Melching, and directed by Kyle Dunleavy.
Yes, sir. That's all the information that I got. That's the end of my notes, so we'll see you next week.
That's everything we got. The fortune cookie for this one is where we are going always reflects where we came from.
Who you got, buddy?
This feeling something like a good Yoda or a Qui-Gon here. This one's pretty good. I don't know.
Yeah.
What were you feeling?
Maybe like Obi-Wan talking about somebody else. There is a little snippet later where Obi-Wan is talking to Ahsoka about Anakin, and if that conversation were to have been like expanded or something, you need to like boil it down to kind of the moral of what's going on. I can see it coming from him.
Yeah. That's kind of why I thought Qui-Gon too, just because it sounded like some advice he would give to Anakin were he still alive as well.
Okay. I'm down.
Because
I'm down
of the care he had for Anakin for the brief time they knew each other was definitely a little more parental, more father figurely than say what we ended up seeing between Anakin and Obi-Wan, which was more brotherly. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
So, yeah, to me, that's why this sort of advice... I agree with you with Obi-Wan as well, but there just seems, because of that kind of different dynamic and relationship between Qui-Gon and Anakin versus Obi-Wan and Anakin, that's why I was feeling Qui-Gon for this one myself. But
yeah, that totally makes sense. At first, I thought it was like not kind of disciplined enough for something that Qui-Gon would say, but I think that, you know, the way that you explained it as being something if Qui-Gon were alive and he was the one that was training Anakin, that would definitely be in his bag of tricks as far as like a teaching moment, you know, using the past for the future type deal. Cool.
Yeah,
I'm down with it.
Sounds good.
What do we got going on in our newsreel this week? We just wrapped
so we do
up
have a complete
4-week Umbara arc, so we're past that. We're on to something else.
Yes, and now we get a full setup of the setting for where we are. There is no recap at all from previous episodes. We get a full, true scroll-style newsreel.
Yep.
So we get introduced to the planet of Kyros, which is described as an artisan colony. They have no weapons, and they put emphasis on art and beauty, it is described. But dark shadows loom towards the end of the newsreel as this Clone War seems to affect every nation, no matter how neutral they try and stay.
Yes. Yeah, so I got 2 questions.
Yes.
Is this the homeworld of the Togruta or not? Because they're called colonists, right?
Yes.
And according to Wikipedia, there's only like 50,000 Togruta. That doesn't seem like enough to actually inhabit an entire planet, right?
Yeah.
So, which that makes me wonder, like, where the homeworld of the Togruta are, and what drove these 50,000 to colonize on Kyros.
I was kind of wondering that too. We get a small quote from Ahsoka mentioning a slight personal attachment, being that these are her species people, but she never mentions that this is her home.
Yeah, apparently Togrutas, which is the plural of Togruta, which is weird, were from the planet Shili.
Okay.
So this is just, are these like the hippie Togruta?
So this is their Boulder, Colorado, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so.
So a lot of transplants moved to Kyros who wanted to pursue art and beauty. The beauty part in the newsreel was interesting to me. Like, art would be one thing. It'd be like art and culture, art and music, art and anything else. But the fact that they're pursuing beauty,
right?
And it's confusing in the newsreel too, because while the narrator is saying the word art and beauty, it definitely focuses on a female Togrutan. And I couldn't tell if that meant like physical, personal beauty, or just like beauty in general, right? Like how like beauty in nature, beauty in the arts, beauty in math and sciences. I don't, art I got, culture sure, just pursuing beauty.
Well, I think maybe in this aspect, beauty is more part of their culture as well, because like they're tattooed, right? They're not born with these skin designs on them, right? So that is kind of, a recognizing feature of the Togruta that we know, aside from the Montrails and yada yada. But maybe that's where they're going with this, instead of just like supermodels or something,
right. Like some sort of cultural physical beauty that is,
yeah, or maybe
similar to like Samoan tattoos like The Rock has, like,
yeah, could be. Or there's like are there like Kardashian Togruta, and they moved there, and then like these 50,000 people followed them,
I guess,
and that's their shtick. Not really sure.
Yeah.
But
so that is a question that does not get answered in this episode, that's for sure. Minor spoiler alert on that one. But anything else on the newsreel besides focusing on this weird phrasing of art and beauty?
Yes, the other thing is the weird phrasing of like the self-awareness of when the narrator says, "But in these Clone Wars," I was like, "What?" It's the first time that the narrator has been self-aware that he's talking about the Clone Wars as opposed to just like what's happening in the universe at the time.
Well,
am I wrong in thinking
Wars, that? Sort of. I mean, I see no issue there.
I don't take issue with it. I was just surprised. It's like, it's like as though the narrator is changing from just the opening crawl to being aware that there is somebody watching these stories, right? And then talking about the stories in relationship to itself.
Like a top-down level of the story?
Right, that's kind of the way it felt to me.
I see no issue with that, especially since the Revenge of the Sith crawl starts with one word and an exclamation point. War! Exclamation point. That's how I feel about this as well. Like, There's a slight observation with the everything else afterwards, like the peace-loving worlds are seemingly forced to change sides. That would be the most self-aware bit about it. But in just referencing the Clone Wars, I don't see that any more or less self-referential than any sort of other crawl we might get.
Okay. I'm going to keep an eye on this and see if this feeling grows in the future. And if it doesn't, you'll probably never hear about it again.
Right, because, I mean, are you concerned with the usage of the term Clone Wars, period, or in the crawl, like, outside of just the title? Or?
I think it was the context of it, not necessarily the verbiage.
Okay. Yeah.
Like I said, for me, it just felt like the narrator was in the last half of the newsreel was like more self-aware of being a narrator rather than just giving an info dump at the beginning.
I don't know. We've gotten these sort of like commentary, like leading to, like the phrasing I used earlier. You know, like dark clouds loom in the future. Mm-hmm. We've gotten that sort of, you know, if not in that verbiage, like that sort of sentiment before.
Okay.
So that's why I see no problem with it.
Sure.
It's the narrator has always been more about a story tease than a exact setup per se. You know, sometimes it can do both. Sometimes they'll just do one.
Right.
But yeah, that's my feeling. Should we get into the episode proper?
Yeah, it sounds good to me. That was the only two things that stuck out to me in the newsreel. So since we're done with that, I guess we'll move on.
All right, so we head on to Kyros. We start with the governor, and he's talking on a comm with Yoda. Yoda's there in hologram form. We get a bunch of Tagrutans hanging out in this room. Yoda promises assistance, but this governor, who is unnamed, right? We don't get a full name from this governor at all.
We don't get a name at all. Not even like a partial name. All. There's even on Wikipedia, there's nothing. In the credits, there's nothing. Like, it's
governor.
Yep, it's just governor
at most. Yeah, but basically he turns around and says, "Look, Yoda, it's too late because the ships, some separatist ships, are literally arriving right at that moment.
Dooku is here, so
yeah.
Dooku thanks
done showed up. Yeah. So then Dooku shows up. This governor and a couple other Tagrutans show up to greet Dooku outside.
Mm-hmm.
He lines up all the droids. They're all coming out.
Man, there's lots of them too.
Yeah, full military style presentation. Dooku talks to the Tagrutan and offers a quote-unquote temporary safe haven.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting because Governor is like, hey, what's up with the invasion? You know, I've seen what has happened to, or I've heard of what has happened to planets that got stuck between your droids and their clones. Mm-hmm. And Dooku is basically like, you know, sorry that we had to come here. Like, it's, you know, I couldn't have predicted that it was going to happen, but it did. So since I had to invade your planet, I can give you refuge if you stick with me. And the guy's like, okay, well, thanks. And Dooku is basically like, I insist. And then immediately turns around and is talking to one of two new alien characters called Zygerians that we have not seen before.
No.
And he just goes, fucking round up all the citizens. Like, let's get this shit done. There's a lot of that in this episode where one person will just turn around and talk to another person, but they're talking about, like, whoever they were just talking to.
Who could or could not still be just standing right there.
Who should totally be able to hear them. Dooku does it a couple of times.
Yeah.
It's weird, but I don't know. You see that shit in plays all the time? Like, you know, when there's dialogue between characters on a stage, it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody on the stage can hear what they're talking about. Right. And that's the way dialogue is presented in this episode.
Yeah, like in a play, you have to assume that they're like in a quiet corner and everybody else is still like in their own sidebar conversations.
Right.
Right. But obviously they're just saying nonsense things in the background. And Dooku here is interesting too, because like when he insists to, they do like this close up on his hand, like kind of digging into the governor's shoulder.
Mm-hmm. I was wondering if there was some weird force thing going on there, like so that he didn't resist or something, you know.
Yeah, I was wondering if he was using like a Jedi mind trick on him too, but it doesn't seem that way, because it definitely seems like the guy is just like, look, we don't have any weapons, we can't fight, so let's just do what this guy says. He's here. What else can we do? Like, move on with our lives, right?
I don't remember. Do we see the governor again?
No, not at all.
Because at this point, the like droids and whatnot just round up all 50,000 people.
Yep. They start rounding up all the citizens, and they're like, the citizens are walking around. The droids just start marching down the street, and they start peeling off, grabbing each citizen. And it's weird too, because they don't grab them like by whoever's first. Like, they'll pass a dude, grab the lady he's with, walk off with the lady. 3 more droids will pass by before one of them like is like, oh, this guy is still here, and then just grab that guy too and walk off.
Yeah, this is a willy-nilly roundup if I've ever seen one.
It's bizarre. It's super bizarre, but they do so nonetheless. And then soon after, the Republic forces show up, right?
I mean, soon, I don't really know. It seems like they should have had their shit together. Like, so the next scene is, like a cut to space, and we see some ships coming into view and whatnot, Star Wars style. And then we go to the interior of the ship, and it's Anakin and Obi-Wan talking to each other. And I think Obi-Wan says something like, well, I hope everything's okay. And Anakin's like, it's been like 10 fucking days, man.
Right.
So I don't know if Yoda just wasn't on his game or what. At this point, I was wishing that in the Umbaran arc, like when Anakin gets pulled away, Obi-Wan should also like not be on Umbara. It can just be some other Jedi, right? And the two of them get pulled away to go on this mission, and that's why there's like a time delay, because otherwise it feels like the Jedi are just like slacking, because they've totally been pulled off of planet like mid-mission before, and we could have used Obi-Wan's clones in this instead of, didn't need Rex there, didn't need the 501st. They could be on Umbara dealing with Krell and dealing with that shit, and this could be taking place simultaneously or, a little bit later, but Anakin was pulled away and whatnot, and that's what gets us to here, because otherwise it just seems like the Jedi are kind of being lackadaisical on their approach of going to help this planet. Like, yes, Governor was like, oh, Yoda, it's too late. Dooku's already here, but then they show up like 10 days later. And I would totally understand if there was a consistency to the way that hyperspace works, because sometimes it takes some time. Like in A New Hope, jumping from Tatooine to Alderaan, right? Whereas other times it's near instantaneous.
Right.
Like, there's definitely, you get to go through the blue tunnels sometime for a little bit, but it's not like overnight or a day or a week or whatever.
Right. I don't know. I don't disagree with you. It's a weird little interlude. Especially so, that said, when they do arrive to the planet, none of the colonists are there. There are no Togruttans to be seen. So for 50,000 Togruttans to be rounded up and hidden somewhere on the planet, possibly, is quite a feat for sure.
Yeah, it's like 5,000 a day.
Yeah, I do have one question too. Does Obi-Wan look like he has a new, like, face model in this episode? He looks slightly different to me, and I don't know what it is, or I can't tell if it's because we haven't seen him in so damn long.
Well, we saw him on Umbara. Oh no, we only saw him in like Minecraft
hologram
form.
Yeah, like that Minecraft form. So we haven't actually seen him in so long. So his, like, the animation around his eyes and the features on his face seem a little smoother and less angular. It seems like we're slowly moving away from
the marionation.
The wood cut blocks
Mm-hmm.
of seasons 1 and 2 into something that's still stylized, but
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more natural,
Mm-hmm.
right?
He totally could have had a character model update. We're in season 4, and
Yeah.
I mean, even production. So, even production-wise, so it's like we had the 4-part Umbara arc.
Mm-hmm.
So we wouldn't have seen him since season 3.
Oh, is this
Maybe?
really like the first major time we're seeing him in season 4? I'm trying to remember.
So we had
Honestly,
Water
have
War,
no
Gungan
memory.
Attack, Prisoners, Shadow Warrior, Mercy Mission, Nomad Droids. Like, maybe we saw him. I don't think we saw him in either of those. And
No.
then Umbara. That's 4, 6. So, I mean, it's been at least probably 7 or 8 episodes. So it's totally plausible that he had a character model update for season 4.
Mm-hmm.
And if we've seen him at all in season 4, it's only been briefly.
Right.
So I'll check that out and I'll report back next week. How about that?
For sure. Sounds good. So, as mentioned, no colonists are to be found when they show up.
Mm-hmm.
They do come across the droid commandos. And we get a... Is this when... let's see, Anakin and Ahsoka are riding, like, in the, like, hover bike with, like, a sidecar.
Yeah, we got like a speeder bike chase, and there's some shenanigans that go on. The sidecar can like turn 180 degrees, which is pretty awesome. So it can shoot
and
like
it has
behind
like a giant
them.
blaster on it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Like a big cannon, laser cannon gun situation here.
Right. So we basically have a bike chase and a shootout going on at the
Yes.
same time, and then at the end of that, there are just some regular battle droids and some tanks. And all of these droids are disposed of fairly quickly. It's pretty dynamic.
Easily.
I mean, this little action beat is fine.
It's entertaining. Yeah,
It is entertaining.
It's well done, well shot.
It goes pretty quickly. You got to have some type of obstacle for our heroes to get through, and this works well. We got some cool angles. Cinematography's nice. Things are good. And
It's definitely a switcheroo from the Umbaran arc, where those were very dark and gritty action scenes, and for this one we have back to that kind of like fun, light, very well lit planet.
Yeah, it's more of like an Indiana Jonesian action sequence.
For sure. Rather than Saving Private Ryan.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, at the end of that, blow up a couple of tanks. Ahsoka's got some mad fucking force skills. Like, she jumps off of the speeder bike. I don't even know how far. Drops a couple of bombs in this tank, and then just force leaps off of that back onto the speeder bike, like a half a football field away. And all of this is while Anakin is like driving around slashing with a lightsaber. But she's growing up in the Force, man. That's all I can say about that.
She's pretty cool. She's pretty badass in this one for sure.
But I guess they take over. I don't know. It's the defenses there. It seems like all it is like all of the clones that they've already defeated, but they set up a perimeter and all that Clone War stuff, and I think Cody gives Obi like an update. He says like, I don't know, the dude in charge is inside. His name is Darts Dinar. He's one of these Zygerians. I did notice that one of the clones that Obi-Wan talks to is Boyle. So it's like on Umbara we had Waxer, now we have Boyle. That was our duo way back on Ryloth during the Ryloth series. The two of them were like shiny straight out the gate then. Now they're full-fledged, probably not commanders or anything, but they're deep in it, and they got their experience. They got their scuffs and their whatnots and whatever.
Real quick with the Zygerians, they have like an interesting styling, which reminded me of like a Star Wars version of Wolverine in the comics.
Yeah.
Like the crazy hair and the mutton chops. Right?
It's like if Wolverine was part wolf and part vampire.
Yes.
That's what these guys look like. Because at first I thought like, oh, that's like one of, it's like Wolfman, but it's not, because that's like, he's different. Right. Right.
But it's definitely inspired, and like jumping off point is Wolfman sort of thing. And so we do see Darts Dinar, and is it like in a hologram we get sight of another one at some point? I don't know where that person came from.
Yeah, he's another dude. We'll get to him, but real quick, Cody gives Obi-Wan delivers this message. Dinar sent out, like, I don't know how this works. Does he just like broadcast like, this message is for Obi-Wan Kenobi, come in Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then like a clone picks it up and they have the recording or whatever?
I don't know, honestly.
He's basically like, yo, Obi-Wan, I'm in my tower, come on up here and we can talk about surrender. And Anakin force grabs the comm and smashes it, and he's like super pissed. He's like, I'm gonna go kill this motherfucker.
Slavers. Zygerians are all slavers.
Yeah, and Obi-Wan's like, yo, man, he asked for me. Like, chill out. You go find the colonist. And Anakin's like, fine, I will, and stomps off. And Ahsoka's like, what's up his butt, And she gets a little history lesson of Anakin about how he and his mother were sold into slavery by the Hutts. I was really surprised that this is the first time that she would have heard this information. I feel like this would be...
Same, yeah.
I feel like this would kind of be common knowledge floating around the Jedi Temple, right? Like, Anakin came from a slave, he's the chosen one, and
he was like 10 when he started too, rather than the traditional, like, what, toddler age?
Like 1, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, like birth, basically.
Right. Like once.
So yeah, like
once they can move around on their own.
That'd be like somebody going to Hogwarts and not knowing who Harry Potter is, like.
Right.
So I agree with you that it's weird that.
Why is this Ron Weasley guy like all poor and shit and got red hair?
But yeah, like I agree. It's weird that the only excuse we get is Obi-Wan asks Ahsoka, it's like, you don't know anything about his past, do you? And she says, he only mentions it to say that he doesn't want to talk about it. So,
but like, she knew he came from Tatooine, because way back in the theatrical movie, they go to Tatooine. And she's like, hey, you're from Tatooine, right? Like, so she knows some.
She knows that much, yeah. So
like, if she knows that much, you would think that she knew that he was a slave.
Right. Yeah, I got nothing on why Ahsoka knows not about his slave past. I do find it funny though. I do find it funny though that anytime there's like a slight mention of slavery, like this weird primal part of Anakin takes over. Where like he's like destroying like property basically, like it'd be like if somebody took your cell phone and was like, why? And then like stomped on it, Yeah,
I bet Cody's pissed, man.
Right.
Like, dude, I just fucking saved up all my creds.
Yeah.
For that. I've been
That was a
selling
new one,
droid fingers
man.
on the side, and
Now I gotta go back to like Yularen, sign in a request for another one. I have to fill out a
Yularen's gonna
report
be
now.
pissed.
But yeah, so carry on. You were saying?
Oh, there is a nice little like nod to Anakin's theme, or
Yes.
to Darth Vader's
Yes.
theme.
Yep.
It's subtle. It's soft.
Was it subtle? I don't think it was subtle.
I thought it was pretty subtle.
It was pretty right there. It was
Alright.
pretty right on the surface.
I mean, they don't just come out and straight play the Imperial Death March. Like, at least it's modified a little bit, where it's like slowed down, it's soft, it's got like a slow build to it.
I mean, it's been reorchestrated, but I would not call it subtle.
Alright.
Does that make sense? It's not as subtle as like the celebration theme from the end of episode 1 being a reworking major key of Palpatine's theme, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's subtle shit, right? Because like that's a full key change. That's, you know, you get the orchestra or the choir, yeah, like that whole thing. That's been reworked. This one is just like they took the same thing and just slowed it down.
Okay.
That, right?
So, you know, subtlety aside, it's there.
It's there. It's definitely there.
And once it is there, then we cut up to Dinar's office.
Yep.
He's talking to Dooku, and he's talking to this other Zygerian, and this guy's name is Atai Molech. So
yeah.
that's
Where did these Zygerians come from? Like, if we had never seen them before, why is there one hanging out in the hollow with Count Dooku? Like, where'd this guy come from?
He is I don't know. He's like so the way I see it is like Atai Molech is like the governor, and then Darts Dinar is like the military guy.
Mm-hmm.
Is the only way that I can see it. Like, it's like politician and military commander.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's whereas Dooku is both.
Right.
This is two separate people. But they have a little conversation about what's going on, and Molech's like, "Yo, we got our last shipment." But what's the shipment of, right? We'll find out later. We got our last shipment. Right. What are you still doing there? And he's like, "Oh, the Jedi showed up. I'm gonna fucking do this thing and be good with it." His motivations for whatever he's doing aren't really clear, because whatever he's doing doesn't really make any sense. He's basically like, the Jedi are here, so I'm gonna kick it with them, or I don't like the Jedi or something. And then, of course, Obi-Wan has impeccable timing and walks in. He's like, "Oh, really?" And then Dooku introduces everybody to Obi-Wan, even though Dinar already sent a message to Obi-Wan, like, "Yo, Obi-Wan, come up. We'll talk about surrender." And then Obi-Wan shows up, and the Zygerians are like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" Maybe they didn't recognize his new character model.
Right. It's the eyes, man. Once you lose the eyes,
yeah,
it's hard to tell. It's like C-3PO on that red arm, man. It's just impossible to recognize him.
Yep.
So we get a little conversation between Darts and Obi-Wan.
Well, we also get our second Dooku turnaround and talk to Darts and tell him something that the entire room can hear, even though it's like a private conversation, because he's like, "Bring him to me on his knees." And I can just imagine like Obi-Wan standing there, like arms crossed, like, "Okay."
Just rolling his eyes.
Finish up, Dooku. Let's get this shit started.
Yeah. Let's go.
So they talk, quote unquote, surrender, and apparently Darts was actually calling Obi-Wan up to talk terms of the Jedi surrender.
Of course.
And so there's banter back and forth or whatever. And Dinar's like, "Okay, whatever. I have bombs. I can blow everyone up." And in Obi-Wan fashion, he tries to negotiate, and Dinar's like, nope, boom, and fucking blows a bomb up.
Yep.
But apparently nobody's hurt, or nobody's
nobody
killed. There may be some injuries, but there are no fatalities.
Right. During this conversation, at some point, Obi-Wan did turn on his comm, and Anakin and the other clones heard that bit of the conversation too, so they are now aware that there are bombs, other than also that one blew up, so they know that at least there was one bomb around. Yeah,
that was pretty
so
clever.
that information gets put out there. So then Anakin and Ahsoka and the rest of the clones form a plan to try and locate the rest of the bombs, right?
Yeah,
using R2.
The plan is that Anakin tells Cody to hook R2 up so he can locate the bombs. Because he's like, there's no time for a planetary scan. Well, what the fuck is R2 doing? What are they hooking him up to? B, what is he doing differently than... Because Yularen was like doing a planetary scan to try to find the
citizens.
Colonists?
Right, yeah.
So instead, they're going to hook R2-D2 up to the computer to find bombs, and then he takes off running, and he's like, Ahsoka, let's go. And Ahsoka's like, where are we going? And he's like, we're going to go defuse the bombs. We're going to let Obi-Wan negotiate. We're going to go defuse the bombs. And they just hop on these ATRTs, the single-person walker segways.
Yep.
Open-air segways. And just take off. We cut back up to Obi, and this is when Dinar kind of explains why he's got a bone to pick with the Jedi. And apparently 1,000 years ago, the Zygerians had this really, really, really good slave trade.
Right. And apparently we're like number one in slave trading.
They were the slave traders of the universe. And 1,000 years ago, the Jedi came in and shut them down. And he's mad. Because I guess it just destroyed their entire economy or something. I'm not really sure. But he's mad, so he wants his revenge by kidnapping 2 Jedi.
Yes.
Or fist fighting them or something. Because Obi-Wan baits him into getting in a fist fight with him. And he's like, oh, too bad we can't do it the way your ancestors used to do it. And Dinar's like, you would fight me with no weapons? And Obi-Wan's like, if it must be done.
Fisticuffs.
Yeah, so for the next little bit of this episode, probably like the middle third-ish, we cut back and forth. But like plot A is Anakin and Ahsoka defusing bombs. Plot B is Obi-Wan just repeatedly gets punched in the face and and thrown around this office. Like, he is getting beat severely.
But he's basically just trying to keep Darth Sinar occupied while Anakin and Ahsoka are off finding the bombs without his knowledge.
Is that what it is? Do you think that he's a better fighter than what he is... what he's showing to Dinar, or do you think that he's actually kind of giving his all? Because if he wins,
I don't know if he's giving his I don't know if he's giving his all. You know, but I also like because we get a few asides where he's like, "Hurry up, Anakin," and then every now and then during this fight, like one of the droids will interrupt. So like Anakin and Ahsoka, they find the first bomb. They defuse. There's a nice little action scene. More droids getting sliced down. They find the bomb, and Ahsoka opens the bomb, looks inside, is like, I think there's a wire that we need to cut. And Anakin just slices most of the bomb.
He just slashes it in an X pattern. He's like, there, it's done.
And Ahsoka even is like, how'd you know that would work? It's like, oh, I just made a guess.
He said I went with my instinct, and she's like, so you guessed. And he's like, no. Yeah.
It was an educated guess.
Right.
So I think... And then one of the droids interrupts the fight between Obi-Wan and Darts. And then...
This was a good moment.
Yeah, the droid is like, hey, by the way, a couple of Jedi just defused one of the bombs. What should we? And then Obi-Wan like smashes Dart's face on the holo projector itself.
Yeah, before this poor droid can get the info out, Obi-Wan just
Right.
smashes it with old boy's face. I thought that was great.
That was a fun moment. But yeah, so I think it's a mix. Like he's I don't think he's putting up an honest fight, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, if you're gonna take one for the team, he is definitely taking one for the team. Like,
yeah, he's really getting like he gets hit in the ribs a lot. He gets a lot of gut punches.
he gets
a lot of punches
thrown
in the
through
face.
sculptures and smashed through glass or tile floors, and
He gets rattled into like animal cages that are strewn about for some weird reason. That's like mildly unexplained, where Darts just has a bunch of animals lying around.
he said something about their worth a fortune or something. So I don't know if these are animals that came from Kyros, or I mean they would have to be, because otherwise I don't know why they would like.
I couldn't tell if they were like personal pets of his or something. He has like one owl looking thing.
That's a convor.
That pink thing.
Mm-hmm. The convor is like the force sensitive bird spirit animal,
right?
That Pete from Rebels was telling us about a while back.
Right.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of convors on Kyros. But the convor is not in a cage. There's a bunch of other stuff. Nothing that I recognized right offhand. Like, there's something that looks kind of like a Kowakian monkey lizard, but totally isn't,
but
because it actually has like fur. It's like a cross between a Kowakian and whatever the lemur people were. I forget what those guys were called.
I forgot. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they're just like obligatory cages of animals that I think that Dinar is going to sell. Like, maybe when they couldn't sell people anymore, they moved on to like illegal animal trade, would be my guess. So yeah, Obi-Wan just gets his ass beat, and Anakin is conveniently like right next to the first bomb when he sent the map from R2-D2.
Right.
And so they defuse that one, and then the next time we cut back to him, he's at like the last two, and they get ambushed by all of these droids. All the normal ones they take out really easily, and then Ahsoka figures out that the two bombs are linked, so they have to like defuse them together. Up rolls what look like droidicas, but they're sniper droids. I thought these guys were super cool.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. Cool design. Like they have like this plating, like this physical plating, and not sort of a shield thing like the droidicas have.
Yeah, even though at one point Ahsoka's like, "Oh, their shields are too strong," but they don't have shields. And then I don't know.
It's a physical shield. Yeah.
It's more like armor, is what I would call it.
No, I would call that a shield.
Okay.
Like, what would you call Captain America's thing that he carries around?
That's a shield, but it's not part of his. It's not part of his face. If he were to wear it on his body and not take it off, I would call it armor.
I guess. I mean, nah, it's a shield, especially because like it rolls around, you know. So like, yeah, that's a weird distinction to make between armor and shielding.
What would you call the plating on a tank? Like on either side of the ballistic projectile?
I mean, to me, that's still shielding as well, you know? Like, it can be both. It's armor and shielding. You know what I mean?
I'm just saying, normally in Star Wars, when you talk about shields, it's some type of energy.
Right.
Not something physical.
Yeah.
But
because like on a turret gun that has like that plate in front of it, you know, where you shoot through the little slit, or it has the two little slits for you to look through. Like, that's a shield to me, you know.
Okay.
Right.
Sure.
So, gun shields.
Gun shields.
It's just that these guns are sentient to some degree.
Right. So, yeah. I guess either way it doesn't matter. Because they figure out how to destroy him, and they basically both hop out and deflect shots that were fired at them into the opposite sniper droid.
Yeah.
And then,
because as described, the shield only covers that front bit, so like their entire sides are exposed, which is interesting.
Right.
So they just get each other's, and then they disarm the bombs
in the nick
seconds
of time
before they explode. Right.
So we cut back over to Obi-Wan, who's getting his ass beat again. He's smashed through the glass floor. Dinar picks him up by his throat and starts to threaten him. I think he gives more exposition about why the Jedi suck in the Zygerian eyes. Right. And then a droid calls and gives an update on the bombs, and he's like, "Sorry, sir, like you weren't answering, so I had to call the tactical droid, and he patched me through." Kind of corny, but works well. In this portion of the episode, the droid humor's fine. It's not over there's not too much of it. It's just enough that,
it's just there.
Yeah, it's fine.
It doesn't disrupt anything.
I mean, it literally disrupts what's going on with Obi-Wan, but
or like it's not like a weird left field disruption,
right?
Shall we say?
It's with
so
purpose.
all the bombs, so all the bombs are disarmed. Then Darts is like, "Wait, what?" And then he stops choking Obi-Wan. He pulls out his bomb trigger, starts hitting that button. He keeps hitting a bunch of times, nothing happens. So then Darts makes a run for it.
Before he makes a run for it, he says, "I have one more bomb," and it's on the back of his tactical droid. He spins around, hits a couple of buttons. The tactical droid's all like, "How could you do this to me, sir?" There's some Arabesh on this bomb backpack, and it says, "Goo." It's GHOOOE.
All right.
Yeah. So, goo on you. A couple questions about these bombs, real quick. Why do Anakin and Ahsoka need to disarm the bombs when they get there and they're like in the middle of a parking lot surrounded by droids?
What do you mean?
Can't they just let them blow up?
Yeah, I mean,
there was a bomb hidden in a building next to them that blew up, and they ended up okay. So when they find the other bombs, they're just surrounded by droids. Yeah. Couldn't they just run in, activate them, and run off?
I thought about that too for the ones we saw, but I know there are a bunch of other ones we didn't see. I wonder if those were like in buildings or anything like that,
I feel like they were all just like sitting on picnic tables.
Hanging out. Well, because that first one we saw did blow up that building that was right next to them. So I think it's still in preservation of just whatever's around, Yeah. They don't know the size of the buildings. It's, like...
Don't you think that their talents would have been, like, better served to also go up and assist Obi-Wan?
Nah, I mean, disarming the bombs is pretty good.
But they could just take out the detonator, is my point.
Yes. Yeah, but it looks like you could still arm the bombs themselves, like via the bombs themselves.
Yeah.
Like it had a keypad and stuff on them, so the droids still start messing with them. So.
Okay.
Right. It's not like you find a bomb at the White House and you're like, oh, but nobody's in the building. That's fine. We'll just let it blow up.
No, I think it would be more akin to you're at the city pool and somebody took over the snack bar and they blow up one of the lifeguard towers, and then you run and you find a bomb at the top of the slide, but you don't give a shit because you're leaving anyway, so because you can't get any snacks, right? So like why take the time to do it when you can just move on to the next one?
I mean, then you're still like destroying the pool. Like,
it doesn't matter to you. It's not your pool.
I mean,
Do you think
these people are
Anakin's
trying to
ever
bring
coming back
peace.
to Artisan City?
Well, I mean, I think the idea is like the peacekeepers are trying to, not have the bombs blow up
All right.
and destroy like an entire city. Like these are still people's homes and stuff, right? Like,
If you insist.
just saying, man.
Speaking of these being people's homes, do you want to talk about like the building design?
Not really.
Not really.
It
Nothing.
was just there.
So they're designed in like the organic growth of Togruta Montrails.
Uh-huh.
That's the design of the buildings.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know how they build them. I don't know if this is like one of those weird, made out of like bug shit things.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, visually they mimic the Montrails of the Togruta themselves.
Very nice.
So there's your artsy fartsy thing. I don't, it kind of makes me wonder whether or not like on their home world the same type of architecture exists, or if this is just on Kiros.
Right.
So yeah, our bombs have been disarmed. Obi-Wan is finally able to not get beat up anymore, so he calls his lightsaber to him, and then Dinar, I don't know, activates the bomb on his droid, and then he takes off. He escapes like Bruce Wayne, just like sitting in a chair shooting down a tunnel.
Yep.
Right?
He runs to his ship. Obi-Wan pushes the tactical droid outside of the window.
Yep.
He blows up outside the window. Ahsoka and Anakin are alerted to that. They hop back on those ATRTs, make their way back. Darts gets on his ship, starts flying away. Anakin and Ahsoka are informed that he's making a run for it. Anakin is very determined to stop Darts, and they run past Obi-Wan even with on the ATRTs. They hop off, do a force jump onto the ship that Darts is flying away in, and then Anakin, without thinking about it at all, just jams a lightsaber into one of the engines. Disables that engine.
It's a one-stab death for this engine. It seems a little unrealistic even for the Clone Wars.
Right.
But
I mean,
this is also in a
disabled.
world where the ATRTs can jump like over a one-story building and leap like meters and meters and meters, which I think is ridiculous. I'm not a real big fan of the ATRTs. Like, I guess they serve their purpose of moving a single trooper from one place to another quickly, but I don't really like the operation of these things because they jump, they run, they like dodge and weave.
They definitely have a lot of plot armor, shall we say.
Yeah.
Because the ship is really far away by the time that they jump with the ATRTs and then jump off the ATRTs and then land on the wing of this ship. But either way, they get on there. He does the stabby. Ahsoka is like, hey, did you have a plan? And Anakin's like, no, we'll figure it out.
I'm open to ideas.
The Darts has like a weird like sort of radar on the ship, and then notices like two other life forms have appeared on the ship, opens the door, and then like opens the cage in which there's like a big animal inside,
so this thing
which is his Blixus.
Yeah, I was gonna say this thing is called a Blixus. I almost wish that it was a Rathtar and or the Rathars were Blixus.
Right.
Because we have two different things that are like large ball-shaped and tentacly with a mouth on them. This thing kind of has a shell on it. It's a half-shelled, semi-aquatic creature with tentacles and 6 sharp legs. It also has, like, crab things. So the first time I was watching this, I wasn't paying attention completely when we first see this thing attacking Anakin. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, it's like the dude from the arena battle, right? An Attack of the Clones. Mm-hmm. It's like a combination between that and a Rathtar.
Sort of, yeah.
And I kind of wish it was one or the other. And I know that this was made before Rathars were probably thought of.
Right.
But needing a monster, right? A tentacled monster, shall we say? It would have been a cool call. I would like the Rathars a lot more if it was this Blixus. Because then when I came back and I rewatched this show and I saw the Blixus, I would be like, holy shit, Han Solo had like 3 of those on his ship. Like, now those things don't seem as goofy, right? Because it's a thing that's already been plot established as we need a big tentacled monster to attack somebody.
Right. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Like, it's a weird animal, and honestly, it is a kind of like a weird aside in this episode too, that we get this fight with the Blixus on the ship. And they're slicing and dicing. The Blixus keeps picking up Anakin and Ahsoka. And then at some point, Anakin takes it on Solo while he sends Ahsoka off to go stabilize the ship. Which is weird because she does that while Darts is still in the pilot seat.
Yeah, it's like he doesn't even know how to fly his own ship. I guess he was just going to crash?
Right.
She walks up and hits like 3 buttons and shuts down the engine, everything's good.
Also, like, why not arrest him first and then stabilize the ship? Like, if they've been flying without one engine for that long, it like, the sense of safety here is confused, right? I can't tell if they're they aren't crashing if they've been engaging with this Blixus for so damn long. And if Darts can't turn around and then just hit the same button she does, like, it's not her ship, and yet she figured out how to stabilize the ship.
She's smart like that because she's Anakin's apprentice and he's a tinkerer, so she probably knows mechanics and stuff like that, just by virtue of being Anakin's Padawan.
What the hell was Darts doing this whole time except for looking at the radar and, like, opening, like, cages and stuff, right?
Maybe he just doesn't know how to read the console, you know?
Yeah.
I will say that the city is, like, on a cliff. Mm-hmm. So they've got a long way to fall down before they hit, like, the surface. So maybe he's just not concerned about it yet. I think what he was doing is he was waiting for this Blixus to take him out, and then he was going to, I don't know, do whatever he needed to do and fly off. I do want to share something about the Blixus, which I just found out. The Blixus and these 3 other creatures share a common ancestor. That would be the Sarlacc, the Vixus, which we saw on Umbara. That was the thing that I called the discount Sarlacc, and the Rathtar. So I wasn't too far off with the whole Rathtar reference there. So I'm all right with it. Rathars are a little bit better in my eyes now.
Very nice.
But yeah, we get a little cut back and forth with Anakin and Ahsoka, and they both basically achieve their goals almost off camera. Because Ahsoka totally subdues this guy. Like, this dude just whooped Obi-Wan's butt for like half of the episode, and Ahsoka's got him in check like immediately.
Right. Yep. So then Anakin throws the Blixus off the back of the ship. He shows up in the cockpit. Ahsoka's like, look, I got him. Anakin asks Darts where the colonists are, and Darts brings up that his queen intends to use them as slave merchandise and will start up slave trading again. Mm-hmm. And then we get word from Yularen that there are no colonists anywhere on Kyros, like not even just in the city, but not in the planet at all.
And not even like we get info from Yularen, because we know Yularen's on the planet. We saw him there. But we cut from the cockpit with Dinar to the Jedi Temple. And then Obi-Wan, Anakin, Ahsoka are in like one holo projection, and then Yularen is in a different one. So it's like Yularen is in a different place anyway, which I'm thinking maybe he went like back up to the good guy Star Destroyer, and that's where they were doing their scanning from. I don't know. But this is where Anakin gets the info. Like Yularen's like, hey, we did the scan twice, and they're not there. And Anakin's like, in the city or on the planet? And he's like, no, on the planet. Like, they're not here. They're all gone. It's as if they vanished. And then Ahsoka says something weird, and she was like, they couldn't have vanished. Like, those are my people. Like, those two things are not, one is not dependent on the other.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, that refrigerator can't be broken because I'm sitting in a chair.
Right. Because I own it. Wait,
right.
Huh? Like, all right, sure. But then Yoda says something about...
Yoda says, like, hey, on next week's episode, this is what you're going to be doing. Like,
right.
You go find the colonist.
Go find these slaves. And then he mentions that he's suspecting that the slaves are there to try and make the Sith stronger, right?
Yep. He says, slavery, a great tool it is for the rise of the Sith.
Yep.
And that's the end of it, man.
Cue loud music.
Cue loud music. Iris in.
Iris out. Yep. Awesome. That's it for Kidnapped.
Yeah. It's such a weird ending. Like, I get that sometimes you need, like, some exposition to, like, kind of sail you off into the credits, but to go from, it was just like a strong cut from Anakin wants to kill Dinar, and Ahsoka's like, dude, you can't do that. So then, like, he relents a little bit, and then we just cut over to the Jedi Council, and they're not talking about Dinar. There's, like, no mention of Dinar.
Yeah.
And it's just about how the colonists are gone from the planet. By the way, earlier in the episode, when Molech was like, hey, we got our last shipment. What are you still doing there? The shipment was the people.
Right, of course.
I totally didn't know that watching the episode. Didn't pick up on that one.
Yeah, with the title of Kidnapped, I was like, yep, they're gone. They're all gone.
Didn't even think of that until you just said it.
Yeah, the entire time, like, with the title, I'm like, who exactly is getting kidnapped? And I was like, oh, the entire people. Great.
So it's a 50,000 kidnapping?
Yes, yeah.
That are all supposed to live in this one city, by the way.
Yeah, just all in one city. That's fine. That's not a lot of people, for a single city.
It is for, like...
I mean, I live in a metropolitan area of, like, 10 million people, so...
Yeah. I mean, my city is larger than 50,000 people, but we also have... I don't even know how many square miles. A bunch. And it's not a city of, like, 18 buildings with a courtyard.
Hey, man, we just saw a very small portion of it, maybe. We just saw a very small portion.
You see, like, the whole fucking thing. It's triangular shaped. It's on, like, this spire. There's waterfalls. It's very beautiful. Yeah.
Arts and beauty, man. But, yeah, so let's get into your feelings about the episode overall. Yeah?
I liked it, man. It was good.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was a nice... lighthearted change from Umbara. That was pretty heavy, Umbara was, and I say that it's lighthearted when 50,000 people were kidnapped and Obi-Wan gets his face punched in for half of the episode. But I liked it. It was good. As you mentioned with the character update to Obi-Wan, things are looking smoother, things are looking more refined, things are looking more detailed. They did this, there was this weird texture mapping on the ground of the city that didn't really work for me. It looked like early Not even like 3D graphics, but like 3D representation graphics of video games, where it's like a pixelated mapping of what should look three-dimensional, but it just looks flat with some shading on it. And it was basically like large flagstone with like vegetation growing in between them, but it was repetitive and definitely looked flat and smooth.
Yeah.
And it is what it is, you know. You're getting updates in one area. It looks like they were trying to do something new. You know, it wasn't just like a flat gray road like we've seen 100 times before this, you know, or tile work or whatever, you know. So kudos to taking the next step. I think we're going to see stuff like that improve in the future. But, you know, overall, like, this one was fun. It ran along at a nice pace. I think it's rewatchable. There's little details that you can go back and you can see, like I said, when Dinar is talking to Molech, you know, he's like, hey, we got the shipment. The shipment is the last group of people. Like, that's not laid out in the episode before that, you know. But you're learning that something's being shipped off world. This ship at the end, Dinar's ship, has the name on the side of it in Arbesh. So, you know, it's like if you're looking through that, looking for those details. The ship itself was actually looked kind of like a rework model of one that we saw in the past, and it took me a little bit to lock it down, but I don't remember what episode it was on. I think it was like R2 Come Home or something. Do you remember when R2 got kidnapped from Anakin's starfighter when he got knocked out or some shit? And it was like a junk trader. It was like a garbage scowl or something. Yeah. But it had like the rotatey engines on the side. This one reminded me of that. And I think overall it was nice. It was cool. Right. What'd you think?
Cool. Yeah, I liked it too.
Cool.
Not a favorite episode of mine, like compared to the Umbaran arc, but I agree with you. Just a nice, decent episode that runs by at a decent clip for sure. Entertaining enough. Definitely the first half was more interesting to me than the second half. Basically, once Darts runs the ship, I agree, it starts taking a few weird missteps there. Whereas I would rather just another direct confrontation with Darts rather than a Blixus. You know, it sorts of the script gets distracted by itself to some degree. But all in all,
I think that last little bit was a little bit unnecessary. Like, you could definitely end it with either, you know, you could end it with the escape of Dinar.
Yes.
You don't need that extra 3 minutes of being on the ship. Like, that's real quick. That's a real quick turnaround, like introducing this new thing that's happening and working through whatever the obstacle is and coming out on the other side. I did like, even though I thought it was weird that we had to like cut over to the Jedi Council and like do that bit, I did like how Obi-Wan was basically like, here's your mission for next week's episode.
Like, you know, we get the setup. Yeah, and I like that. That's fine. It again, just awkward pacing right there at the end, but
yep, I agree.
You know, that they did. I have no issue that they did it. Just how they did it for sure. But all in all, an entertaining episode. It feels like it's been a while since we've seen our Jedi trio here, so it was nice to see them all together, especially as well.
Yeah.
It felt like a while there, especially for our boy Obi-Wan, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so thumbs up for me.
Thumbs up for me as well.
Fun enough episode. So yeah, what do we got coming up next week?
We got something called the Slaves of the Republic, whatever that means.
Ooh. After this week, what could that ever mean?
Who could these slaves be? It's interesting that it's of the Republic, so we'll have to see that. You know, I mean, you could take that a couple of different ways. Like, does the Republic have the slaves? Is that what's going on?
Yeah.
We'll
see next week.
Maybe Yoda sent them off on like a wild goose chase because he secretly has all of these slaves that he wants to talk to Dinar about. That's probably
Tricky
what's
Yoda.
going on.
Tricky Yoda. But until next week, if you want to reach out to us at all, just head over to notthenerds.com, right? Is that
Notthenerds.com. Scroll all the way down to the bottom. We got all of our links for social media there. Check us out on YouTube while you're at it.
Yeah.
The videos are embedded in the site. It's probably the easiest way to find us on YouTube. So head on over there. Click a YouTube
Wherever you're
video.
listening to us. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Wherever you're listening to us, just give us a like, subscribe, do all those fun, fancy things, whether that be YouTube or iTunes or wherever you're listening to us. We always like to thank Kevin Warren, who put together our cover art. You can reach out to him. They call me K-Dub on Twitter. Also, Lindsay at Strange Fancy Music at gmail.com. She put together the jingle that you hear at the beginning and end of every episode. So...
Yep, my buddy Anthony put together a website. You can find him on Twitter at Blue the Beard. So
very nice. So until next week, I've been Lorenzo.
Kevin Horde here.
These aren't the nerds you're looking for.
Bye-bye.